Welcome back everybody, Mark here, and today I'm actually going to expand on our graphics window, excuse me. In lesson 3 we opened up a GUI window, or graphic user interface. So let me go back and I'll show you kind of as a refresher here that when we actually ran this program we got this window. Now today what I want to do is actually expand on that window quite a bit. I want to take everything we've learned so far and I want to use it. So arrays, variables. I actually want to add a few new techniques you guys haven't used yet. So like static text and the combo box and a case select. So I'll talk about that a little bit as well as we go through this lesson. And just give you guys a heads up, this is the second time I've tried recording this lesson. The first time the audio didn't come out for some reason. So hopefully this one sounds pretty good. So what we'll do is, let me go switch scenes here so it zooms in a little bit, try to make it a little bit higher quality for you. So we're actually going to declare a couple of global variables. And what a global variable is a variable that is able to be accessed by any branch label function in the program. Global variables, anything can access. So when you have a local variable, it can be inside a branch label and it's only local to that branch or that section of code or that function. It's not accessible from the whole program. So these two variables that we're declaring, we want to make sure we can access them anywhere. And they're going to be integer variables, width, and 1024 will be our default value for width, and height. And we'll set that to 768. That's our default value. Now what we actually want to do is set our main window. I didn't want to type window, I wanted to type width and height. So now we can actually, if we were actually to run this, we'll see that our window is still 1024 by 768, but we're setting its width and height through variables. Now, just to give you guys a heads up, once the window is opened, you cannot resize it in Liberty Basic. I haven't found a way to do this yet. There's not a built-in function. So when we build our window, that's the size we're stuck with right from the beginning. But I want to show you how we can actually have a little settings windows pop up. So we're going to open up two windows in this demonstration or this lesson. So what we'll do is we're actually going to push this code down a little bit. We're going to give it its own little branch label. And what we'll do is we'll actually call this, how about gaming world.main. So this is gaming world.main window. And that's that branch label. So now let's go ahead and set up our second window. And this will be our settings window. So settings window. And our settings window is going to need a window width. Don't want uppercase in there. Window width. And we'll say 250 and a window height of 250. And now we are going to want to center that window. So what we can do is let's just go ahead and copy this code. And I'll do it without the comment here. And we'll just copy and paste this code. We know it's common code, so we're not worried about copying and pasting it. But just remember, when you copy and paste code, if you need to change variable names and numbers, please do so. You run into a lot of catch-22 sometimes if you don't do that. So let's go ahead and open this window. So make sure we give a title to our window. And we'll call this settings, so that'll be the title when we run our program. Let me go back here. I'm sorry if I forget to do that, guys. But we'll say 4 and click back in here. We'll say 4. This is just going to be a regular window. No frame. We don't want it to be resizable as. We'll give it the handle settings. We also want to capture the trap close. Settings. Remember the trap close is the X in the upper right hand corner. here, this one we'll call settings.quit, because we want to actually close this window. We'll do our wait. That way it doesn't fall through and start running other code that we don't want to run. And then under here, we'll actually put the branch label for our settings.quit. And when we actually press the trap close, we actually want to close our settings window. So we'll close that handle, settings. Now what we could do is we could actually just let this fall through right here. So let me go back to this scene and you guys can see if we were to run this program, as soon as we closed our little settings window here, our main window opens up because it falls right through. Now we might want to be more definite in what's going on here instead of just letting it fall through. I personally don't like letting code fall through because you run into some weird things that happen. So what I want to do is actually tell our program that it needs to go to the main window. So I'm going to use a go to. I'm going to tell it to go to this branch label, gaming world.main. And then I'm actually going to tell it to wait. So for whatever reason, if our go to failed, it would wait. It wouldn't just run strange code that we don't want running. So now if we actually run this, you see as soon as we close this window, it still goes, but it's following our go to the gaming world main window. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So let's go back and let's look at what else we need to do. So what we want to do is we actually want to use the array to populate a drop down or a combo box in this settings window. And that combo box is going to have some window sizes for us. So not to date myself, but if you go back to the 90s, a very common window size was 640 by 480. Then the closer you got to the year 2000, 800 by 600 became very popular. Then 1024 by 768. And today we're at like 920. You guys can imagine what we go up to. 1080. So we go bigger and bigger and bigger with our resolutions. So we're going to create an array that has 3 window sizes, and depending on that window size, we're actually going to set the value of width and height, our global variables. So just by selecting, the window size in the drop-down box, we'll go in and we'll choose what side we should set our window at. So if you remember in the last lesson, I talked about arrays. So we're going to declare a string array right here. So dim, we'll call it window sizes. Don't forget the $sign. That's a string array. And it's going to have 3. So 3 items in our array. We then want to populate our array. So window sizes, and I apologize, my throat's getting dry. I try to keep nice sounds and talk clear and crisp if I can. So let's set our first array size, or the first item in our array. And it's a string value, so 640 by 480. Our second value, second item in our array, is going to be 800 by 600. Then our third value in our array is going to be, you guys guessed it, 1024 by 768. Perfect. So that's our array, and our array is perfect. It's what we want, it's what we want to use. Now, the next thing we're going to want to do is actually add some text. So, if we have a nice drop-down box, wouldn't it be nice to know what that drop-down box is referencing? So, because we're using a window, so we're actually using an actual window. So, if you look here, open settings for window, we can actually use static text. Now, if you're using a graphics window, You actually need to use the pen and put the pen down and place the text on the screen. We'll cover that in a separate lesson. When we're using the graphics window, we'll actually use that. But because we're using a window, just see this new control here. This is just static text. So here we go, static text. And then we actually want to reference the handle to our settings window because that's the window we're placing the text on. Settings, and we'll call this txt1. So it can have any name we want, but I like to do .txt text. I like to use periods in there, kind of separates it, makes it very readable for us. So I like to use that. I mean, you guys can use whatever you want, but I try to document and make sure when I go back and I look at my code, oh, that's what I was doing. So it makes it a lot clearer for us. And then we can specify the text that we want, so window size. And then we want to place it on the X and Y axis. So it's going to be over 5, down 12. And then this text is going to be 75 wide and 25 tall. So that's its width and height. So if we were to run this right now, yeah, you guys aren't going to be able to see that if I don't change the scene. There we go. Alright, so if we run this right now, you guys can see here's our text, window size. It's using the default font. Once again, later lesson, we'll talk about how to set fonts and using font controls. We'll do that later on. Right now, I just want to show you that we can open another window, set some sizes, and use everything we've kind of already talked about. So let me go ahead and close this. Go back to my other window here for us. So now what we can do is go ahead and add the combo box or the drop down box. So combo box, this is a control of a window. Once again, we got to reference our settings window. Remember I talked about handles being important. This makes sure that we're setting the combo box onto this window. And we'll call this CMB, and what do we call it? Window size. How about WS? There we go. Combo box window size. Now we actually want to populate this combo box with our array. So we want to say window sizes, and then we actually want to use excuse me, the brackets, not the square brackets or the curvy brackets, but braces, brackets. So we just want to enclose it. So now you see window sizes, so that's basically populating our combo box with our array of window sizes. When we select one of those sizes, we actually want to let it jump to a branch label. It's going to be window.size. This is where we're going to have it react to our selection. And then we want to actually define the placement, our X and Y position of our window, so we'll have it over 100 pixels from the left of the window, so on the X-axis, and then on the Y-axis we want to have it down 10. Then we wanted to have it to be 100 wide by 150 tall, so set our width and our height. Now what we still need to do is actually set the branch label for our window.size. So window.size. You can see this branch label. I put it before settings.quit because this is all one separate window. So I'm trying to keep the code together as we go through. Now we might document this more. I know I didn't put a lot of documentation in here, but I do recommend using comments and specifying what you're doing so it's clear for you later on. So when we drop down in our window.size, right now I'm going to tell it to wait. But this is where we're going to actually do something with our selection. So if we run this now, just to show you guys what you should have at this point, window sizes, you can see the 3 sizes we can select. The default is 1024 by 768, but if we select one of these, it's really not going to do anything right now. We're always going to get 1024 by 768 until we finish building our window.size. Back here, And we're actually going to use a new setting in here, or some new language that I haven't talked about yet. First, we're actually going to find out what size the user selected. So, okay, we selected something out of that combo box. Well, what did we select? So let's store that information somewhere so we can use it. So let's reference our window handle. So settings, combo, CMB, and the WS window size. And then we're actually going to say selection. This is a special command or instruction for Liberty Basic. So it's saying, okay, whatever the user selected, store it into a string variable, which we're going to declare. And we're going to call it window. So that's a string variable that we created that we're storing whatever we selected in our dropdown. So now we can do something with that. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a case statement. And I haven't talked about the case statement yet. But what we could do is we could use an if statement, which I haven't talked about either. So let's look at an if statement. So we could say if, window equals, and we could say 640 by 480, then window, or not window, but then width equals 640, height equals 480, and end if. Now that'll actually work. So if we were to run this now, let me go back so you guys can see this. If we were to run this and select 640 by 480, you see how small our window is? It's not that big window anymore, it's a smaller window. And that's because our if statement works. Now we would have to write an if statement for each one of those. Now, not too bad, right? Kind of a couple lines of code. Well, what we can do is we can use a case statement, which is one line less of code for each case statement. It's a lot cleaner, it ties all the code together, and it's quite a bit more efficient than all these if statements. Because we could do an if-else ladder, which gets kind of confusing, but I like using a case statement. So that's the if statement if you haven't used it before. Works out very well. But let's go ahead and use the case statement. So let me go back here. So basically we're going to say select case. And what case are we looking for? We're looking for whatever value was set to this variable window. We'll say window. And then we'll say end select. Now I do this out of habit so that our control is completely completed. And now we can say our first case. So we can say case 640 by 480. You can see it's quite a bit, it's a lot less typing. You don't have to type as much. Saves you a lot of work. Now we can just set our width equal to 640. Then our height can equal 80. That's our first case statement. So if I run this from here, you guys can see if I select 640 by 480, we still have that small window. So it's doing exactly what we want. We told it to do this, and it's doing it. But let's go ahead and build the rest of our case statement. We go back here for us. And to add another case statement, we just go case. It's string, so we're looking for string data. So what's the case we're looking for? Well, we have it right here in the second window size. We're looking for 800 by 600. So if 800 by 600 is selected, let's go ahead and set the width to 800 and the height to 600. Then our last case says, 1024 by 768. And if we selected that one, once again, width equals 1024, height equals 768. So if we were to go ahead and run this now, you can see we can select 640 by 480. Once again, hold on, I know you guys can't see anything. There we go, vision. It's a wonderful thing. So if we were to go ahead and run this now, we'll run it here and we'll select 640 by 480. Close our window. You can see we have a 640 by 480 window. If we were to go ahead and run it again, and let's go ahead and select 800 by 600. We now have an 800 by 600 window. And if we were to run it one more time, you can see if we select 1024 by 768, that's our default value. Now, if we were to just run this window and close it, we're going to get our default value. But notice the drop-down box is empty. It's not very intuitive, so we want to actually make this as intuitive as possible. So let's set the value of our drop-down box right within our small main settings window. We can do this right here. And basically what we can do, we can set the window size right from the default get-go. And we can say window size, put $ here, equals, now make sure this is a string, so 1024 by 768. And we're going to use another command here. So we're going to use settings. So this is the handle of our window once again, and we're actually talking to the combo box for the window size. And we're actually going to tell the combo box to select a default value. So we're going to say select. Don't forget the space here. I can't tell you how many times I've been burnt by that. Semicolon. And we're going to say window size, the $. That's actually going to set the default value of our window. And what we can do here is, let's put a comment. Set the default value of our window combo box. So now that'll set the default value of our combo box. So if we go ahead and we run this now, you can see 1024 by 768. So if I close this window, that's what we're going to have, is a 1024 by 768 window. But if we were to run this and I change my window size, then we're going to have a different size window, 800 by 600 or 640 by 480. So that's how we use variables together. That's how we use an array. It's kind of a, I wouldn't say a crude example. You know, you might have to set some settings if you want. When changing window sizes like that, like I said, you cannot change the window size after you open it. But depending on what you have for graphics, you might have to scale your graphics to the window. I'm not going to get into that now. It's kind of more of an advanced topic. But a lot of times what I like to do, so I don't have to worry about that, I'll do a 1024 by 768 window or a widescreen window. And that's the size I'm going to use and play on. I'll build my graphics to the window. That way I don't have to do all that extra scaling and, oh, this didn't work because that wasn't the right width. So, you know, kind of right way. You know, I'm not sure, but with programming, you know, not necessarily a wrong way. You know, there's an efficient way to do things. If there is a wrong way, it's not going to work. So as long as your code's working the way you want, you know, hey, have at it and have a good time. I hope you guys find this useful. Stay tuned for the next episodes. I'm going to do quite a bit more. We're going to get more into graphics, get quite a bit more intensive. But if you like the episode, please hit that thumbs up button. And if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe. Alrighty guys, see you in the next lesson.